All right, let's get our Facebook folks in here before it's officially time to go. Spinning wheel 1 and spinning wheel 2. There we go. Check marks. That one took a second. Thursday. It must be Thursday. Last show of the week for us. Welcome in. Welcome in. It is the 23rd of March. We are flying by. Spring is sprung, I guess, and we're here. Welcome in, Scott. You and I were both fraternity guys, and we had to memorize, like, I don't want to disparage it totally, but like stupid, like, limericks and stuff from like 100 years ago, forever ago, and one of them was "Spring is sprung," was the line in it. But
how about I get the microphone out?
That sounds good. I was like, something's off. What's going on?
Let me get the microphone. I haven't started talking yet. I'm like, I'm finishing up some things, and here we go live. But you mean alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, zero, iota, while you're burning a match? Yeah, I can still do that. I'm 50. That was 30 years ago.
We had to memorize pledge classes. Like 30 of them. It was nuts. We did like 6 weeks of pledging. It was not physical, but hardcore.
6 weeks. We had a quarter and then some.
Yeah, I mean, they've watered it down a lot.
And remember, it was just starting to turn with the non-hazing stuff, in the 90s.
Yeah.
But I actually chose one that I knew that hazed some. Was like, I don't want to just sign up and get in. I want to earn it. So
yeah.
Anyway, good times.
Yeah, they were times, all right. But welcome in, everybody. It is Thursday morning. We're going to talk a little bit of power rankings. And if you guys have any questions, obviously, Scott and I are all about the NFL draft and the roster building side of things. So if you guys have anything, make sure you hit us up. If you're joining us for the first time, click the thumbs up, as we just got one coming in here. Is it Scott? No, it's Brandon Williams coming in. Good job, Brandon. And also make sure if you're on YouTube side of things, subscribe, like, and share. But let's say hello to some people in the chat. First, we got our one and only, the DWI guys, Ethan out there, our opener and closer today, starter and closer, saying good morning, gents in Broncos country. Good to see you. Dr. Van Nostrand coming in saying good morning, y'all. Good to see you.
Good placement of the apostrophe. You must actually be a Southerner.
Proper usage of the apostrophe too. Y'all's a great word. All super inclusive.
It's easy. Like I said, I was born in Ohio, but I moved down to the South when I was 5. So I'd already learned to talk, and there was just certain things I was not going to jump, like fixing to. No, I'm not fixing to do this show. Like going is just a nice, easy word too. We're gonna do this show. I can do that one. I'm not fixing to do this show. I wasn't never gonna do that one, but y'all works. Y'all's easy. It tells you exactly. I mean, you all, not you or yous guys or y'all, all y'all.
Y'all, and my favorite is folks. Like folks is just okay. It's great. Okay. But Jeremy Sean, morning fellas. After last season, I welcome minimal preseason hype. Yeah, we'll get into it. It's more fun to exceed expectations than to merely meet them. Yeah, Broncos are low on the expectations based on these two power rankings. I know it's get some people's panties in a bunch a little bit. My panties will not be bunched up from this, but if you guys in the chat have it, God bless you. It's your right to get. It's fun to get mad about things that don't matter, like preseason power rankings. So matter enough to talk about, though, of course. But Jeremy, I agree with you. Lower expectations and then exceeding them. Great. Sleep on us. Don't give us 10,000 primetime games against like the Chiefs where it's like, this probably is not going to end well. Mike, go ahead.
Mike Evans, good morning. Nick, and I'm pretty sure you meant Scott. That's okay. He says, hope y'all are doing well today. Doing good. Want to say hello to Arthur Eugene Spooner over on Twitch. Hit our Twitch community. Says, good morning from Germany. What do you think about trading Bowles away and trading for Jonah Williams? We've talked about Bowles a lot as if you really, if you wanted to hit the reset button now, if you wanted to do it early, he's one of the few contracts that you could move on from and save a significant amount of money. The problem is, let's say you save $10 million. What's it going to cost to replace him? You end up having to spend 5 to 10 to just replace him anyway, and you might not get an upgrade on it. So maybe I get a pick out of it, where I get some cost savings and I get a pick. Maybe I get a pick, but I wouldn't end up getting much savings. So what do you really get in return? So when you've got enough holes on the offensive line as it was, you've plugged a couple of those. I don't think you're quite done yet, possibly. I'm not sure you want to create another one. So I still would not advocate for trading Garrett Bowles right now.
Yeah, and Jonah Williams has not been that great for Cincinnati either. He's been up and down there. I think he was the 11th overall pick, whatever draft he came out in from Alabama. He's been fine, but I think his best. It's
a dirty word on this show.
He's not great, but he's also not bad. I think he'd probably be best at right tackle, maybe even guard, but right tackle. And it sounds like he's not about that. I mean, he has a chance. There's a clear path to pay right tackle at Cincinnati right now. And as soon as they signed Orlando Brown, the rumors were, he wants out of there. So we'll see what happens with him. But I don't think the Broncos are going to do a move with Garrett Bowles this offseason. I think you're looking forward to next offseason where it's going to be a major decision on Garrett Bowles, because you talk about saving a lot of money this season, Scott. Next year is even more so.
Yeah, I just remember it was like 18-10 for him and Justin. Oh God, all these names are just I'm on overload right now with free agency and draft. I'm like, Justin
Simmons.
It's not Justin Williams. What's the safety's name? Now all I can think of is like Justin Simmons.
Simmons.
What is the safety's name?
Justin Simmons.
Simmons. Thank you. Sermons, Williams. I'm like, good Lord. All right. I've had one sip of coffee this morning. Patrick's going to help me fix that right now.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Patrick. Lion Coffee. Shout out to them. Almost done with my
senior moments. Good Lord.
It's happening. It's okay. Mark Rich, morning, Nick and Scott. What's the good word today? The good word is that the Broncos are not being hyped up. But we get probably enough of that in here with us sometimes. Well, Scott and I are pretty even keel, but just in general. But yeah, Broncos pretty low in the national rankings so far post-draft, which surprised me. We'll get into it. Albert Knoppers. Oh, man. This is a gazoon tight. I don't know what's going on here.
Guten Morgen.
Alimal.
It sounds like a mixture of the Alimal sounds almost south of where he's from. So, Guten Morgen.
I'm not sure, but it might be German.
I can hardly get Justin Simmons right this morning.
Tim Durr, good morning, Nick and Scott. Good to see you. What's good? Quentin Caldwell, great to see you. Our guy Michael, one of our big-time supporters. Good morning, Nick and Scott on Broncos for Breakfast. Go Broncos and Buckham. Always appreciate you, Michael. Chase Wellner in the house. Morning, y'all. You got to use y'all there. I even added it. So Greg Smith, good morning, Broncos for Breakfast. We also got Keith saying, new computer, Nick? Yes, new computer. Hopefully I'm clear and I'm not freezing up. I'm attached to the router extender. I got the brand new computer as well. I have the task manager up. It looks like the CPU is not getting above 30%. So rather than bumping up on 100% like it was constantly on the other one. So I think we're okay. Holding my breath there, but I think we're okay. Sometimes StreamYard just has issues in general, but I think we're doing okay. Donnie Claus, go Broncos. Excited to see the Broncos turn things around. And we got Nathan Popel coming in saying Hard Knocks. I think the rules for Hard Knocks are that there are two requirements. One, you cannot have made the playoffs last year, so the Broncos fulfill that one. Number two is you have to have a non-first-time head coach. So the Broncos would not be eligible for Hard Knocks this offseason, but they will be next offseason. I would assume Sean Payton's not going anywhere.
Unless you make the playoffs.
Unless you make the, yes, of course. I meant the keeping the head coach one.
Nick, I know. We're just so used to not making the playoffs right now.
That's allowed. Benjamin Flores, morning, fellas. Congrats, Nick, on the new computer. Fancy pants. Well, thanks, Scott, for helping me out.
Pants. That's funny.
I'm rocking sweats, having a blanket on me because I don't have the heat on when we're doing this because the heater's right behind me. So that's
I put shorts back on this morning because it's 49 now, but it's supposed to hit 80 today. I'm like, it sounds like a baseball game. We're playing 50-80 today.
Ugh.
Those are you'd have to have a youth baseball player to understand. As you get older, they go from they go 45-60 on the base paths, pitcher's mound, up to 50-80. It's like 54-80 and then up to 60-90. So it's a baseball day today. It's 54-80, 13U.
I am ready for baseball. Mariners games are a lot of fun out here. Tickets are cheap. And I got tickets to go see Iowa's women's basketball team. They play in Seattle in the Sweet 16 on Friday against Colorado. So sorry, Buffs fans, but I'm pulling for Iowa. They have an incredible player named Caitlin Clark, who's like the Steph Curry of college basketball. I mean, she's unbelievable. Alabama Green, good morning, gentlemen. What free agents are out there to help our Broncos defensive line depth? We've talked about a few on here, but the ones that immediately come to mind, I think right now, long-term perspective, I want a dominant, alpha pass rusher as an edge, but I think your immediate depth for 2023 is probably okay. And if a good one falls in the draft, don't overthink it. But as far as the defensive line depth goes, I'm more concerned about the interior right now. And the names that stick out to me are Calais Campbell, kind of a versatile inside-outside guy, and also Shelby Harris. Those are two that are veteran players, probably not going to get massive deals at this point. Still on the market, last I saw, and makes sense to me. Now, if the Broncos kind of want to move some things around, we had the move things around conversation earlier with left tackle, moving Bowles to bring in Jonah Williams, how much of an upgrade it is, if at all, I don't know. But you have Mike Purcell. You could move on from him, save some cap, and bring in Al Woods, who's that pure nose tackle as well. He's been pretty good at Seattle, but I'm looking for more of a guy who can do one technique out to like 4-eye, across the board on the interior spots.
Yeah, Campbell got out of Atlanta, I think, without signing a contract, so you're still in it there. They've had some money, and speaking of the Falcons and free agents and the Denver Broncos, there's some smoke that Risner may actually end up in Atlanta.
That's
a friend of mine in the industry, after I wrote that article of stay away, no, and hell no on Risner to the Falcons, he reached out. He said, hey, there's some smoke around this actually happening. You want to come on the show? Like, absolutely. Absolutely. No, y'all know what I've thought about it. And I actually am nicer about it here because I'm kind of I'm part of this group, but I'm an outsider of sorts. And this is your show. This is Denver Broncos. You want to find out what I really feel about it? Come over to my channel if the Falcons signed Dalton Risner, and I'll tell you exactly what I felt about Dalton Risner, his play last year.
I think once we see the contract, you'll be like, okay, well, I don't love it, but maybe this will be okay. Given how late we are in the process, I can't imagine he's going to get a big deal. I mean, we've seen it all these guys like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and Dalton Schultz, like apparently had these bigger deals on the table. And then at this point in free agency, teams just don't have the money to give out. So they take these more short-term, less dollars.
Between our two shows, we said last year, towards the back third of the season, maybe even middle half, there isn't a single offensive lineman I would swap with the Broncos and Falcons. And you agree with me because it's like Jake Matthews was playing better than Garrett Bowles, and then Garrett Bowles was gone. Left guard was actually Eli Wilkinson, a former Bronco. He was playing better than Dalton Risner. Center was probably the weaker spot on both teams, but I still would have taken Drew Dahlman over Lloyd Cushenberry.
Absolutely.
Right guard is your best, but Chris Lindstrom is better than insert name. Sorry, it doesn't matter. Right tackle, Caleb McGarry was significantly better than who you had at right tackle. All five across the line. You don't get better by bringing in Dalton Risner.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it is. I'm pulling for him because he seems like a great guy, but maybe he'll get a chance in a better unit. Maybe the functioning, the sum of the parts will bring him.
That's what I always have tried to hedge is by saying, I'm not saying he's a bad player. I'm saying he has played badly.
Yeah.
And there's different circumstances around that, but I don't want to get somebody that's coming off of 2 bad years. So, go invest. I'd rather reward Wilkinson if he's healthy. The problem was he ended up only playing in 9 games. And then, but the article was basically, if you really want to run power, he's a mauler. I'm like, no, he's not. he's not a mauler. Basically everybody that they put in left guard, the Falcons played 4 left guards last year at one point. Every single one of them graded higher than Dalton Risner on PFF. Every one of them, all 4. That's hard to do, man.
Yeah.
Unless the guy you're talking about's really low.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Wish him nothing but the best. And it would be kind of funny to follow him in Atlanta after everything in Denver. But Richard Miles, good morning, guys. Good morning, everyone. Good morning to you. Dr. Van Nostrand. You have family in Missouri? I have family in Missouri. We related? What's going on? Closest he is to a Southern. My favorite thing about my family in Missouri, language-wise, is they say, go wash up. The R in wash. Missouri. Yeah, the state of, actually, they always say, the state of misery. But we appreciate that. Clayton coming in.
I like it because we're both skeptics of sorts, so we firmly believe in the show me state. Quit talking about it, man. Show me. We're Missourians at heart.
Got to do it. Clayton, morning, guys. Smash that like button. Share another day at the gym. Well, good. Getting it, man. That's awesome. I'm starting to pick up the longer dog walks here, getting ready for all the summer escapades. Dom, good morning to you. Lawrence, one of our big star guys, saying we never earned those games they gave us. Talking about last year's preseason ranking. I do the hype. I'm glad we got to earn it again. Yeah, absolutely. Bruno,
hold on. I'm gonna jump in here because David and I had some fun yesterday, and you're coming in and just a shade. We're at 15 minutes, so you've missed all of it, David. The entire chat, it was unanimous, said that the greatest playoff quarterback of all time was Aaron Rodgers. Sorry, it's been decided. No, I'm just yanking your chain. This was going on from yesterday. David was saying Aaron Rodgers was a garbage playoff quarterback. I'm like, it's a little strong. I'm saying he's the greatest of all time, but he was pretty good. He's still a pretty good quarterback. He hasn't always, he hasn't won as much as Tom Brady, but the numbers are there, and it's a team game. wins aren't a quarterback stat, right? Unless you win it all.
Over a large enough sample size.
Dom. I'm kidding. Watch your language.
Bruno coming in saying, would the Broncos try Cortland Sutton and 6 for DeAndre Hopkins? Do you think that would do it? I don't know how much power does DeAndre Hopkins have in this trade leverage right now. I don't think he has a no trade clause, but they might, try to do him somewhat right, or he might have to sign an extension with whatever team he goes to, and he might cross his arms if it's not a team he wants. Does he want to come to Denver? I don't know, but they're talking about, a 4th round pick maybe for Hopkins, which is pretty wild to me, maybe a 3rd, but I would say no if I was the Cardinals, but it's really hard to judge what this wide receiver market is right now.
He turns 31 in a couple months. The problem with one of his is you've got a potential out, so they could still get out of this with the dead cap. It says dead cap, and it says potential out. I'm looking at this; it's a little backwards, but he's got a lot of money coming up in his base salary. So a lot of times you look at those contracts and you're like, okay, it's not actually as much as you think, because the team that originally gave him the contract is the one has already paid him in bonuses. Mm-hmm. He's got a $20 million base next year. Cortland's base is pretty high too, but I don't know. There seems to be, why is this the second team that's gone down and is moving on from DeAndre Hopkins? There seem to be other priorities for me than him.
Interesting. That's we'll see what the Broncos do with the wide receiver spot. They seem pretty hell-bent on trading a wide receiver. There's a lot of smoke about the Browns, and the Browns made the trade yesterday for Elijah Moore. Now the team that we should be watching seems to be the Patriots interested in Jerry Jeudy, but who knows? We'll see how it plays out. Kevin Gray, Morning Broncos Country. Nick Scott, how's everyone doing? Doing pretty well. Can't complain too much.
Real quick, Nick, D-Hop's only played in 19 games the last 2 years too.
That's a big one. So
you guys are tired of signing guys that are injured. How about a 31-year-old who's injured and expensive? That sounds like a big no to me, fellas.
Yeah, it's unless it was cheap, like kind of a luxury edition, but it's probably not going to be that. Benjamin Flores, morning, fellas. Congrats, Nick, on the new computer. Oh, we got that one.
You already hit that one, yeah, but that was funny twice.
Yes. Working our way down the chat. It's Colton coming in saying, I missed the first 10 minutes, but I'm here. Good morning, my favorite host. Well, that's nice of you to say. We appreciate you coming in saying hello. And Diamond Rattler, too. Good to see you. Boom, let's go. Awesome. And I think we're pretty much all caught up. So thank you, guys. No notice here from Bruce. I don't know if you mean like no.
You didn't get a YouTube notice. I don't get them for this show. The only one I get them every time for is the night one, the Mile High Huddle show. So I think maybe you have to go into the playlist sometimes and click it and say, I want this playlist, because we add them to the playlists. Might be something to check on.
And Joseph's right. He was suspended to start last season with the kind of the BS statement. I didn't know what I was taking thing, but the enhancers that were, I guess, against the rules.
You're missing games.
Yeah.
For one reason or another, he's missed half the games the last 2 seasons. He's 31 years old and super expensive.
Yeah. I think the Broncos are more interested in building the team a different direction, getting younger and potentially cheaper at the wide receiver, turning it over, but not, just, again, moving pieces to move pieces. They've looked to add maybe cheaper weapons and turn over that room. And I think they're just really trying to get some more draft picks up there to add a few more players. Wouldn't shock me at all if somebody like Sean Payton's trying to finish that offensive line with another center pick there, or an interior offensive lineman, just to continue to solidify that team. I mean, we've gone over it when the Broncos first brought in Payton and talking about free agency, but like just how thoroughly he has attacked the offensive line during his time in the Saints, specifically the interior offensive line too. I mean, they used top 50 pick after top 50 pick on that unit for a decade. And we got that's an interesting color coming in there. Maybe it's the new computer screen. I don't really remember.
No, I remember I always say he's coming in hot pink, fuchsia. You hear me say that all the time, but Nick never knew what the hell I was talking about.
It never looked like this is like a raspberry red. What's going on? I got a better computer, I guess. But good morning from Mark Schrader, $50. Good morning to you,
Mark. It is a little darker today, isn't it? Raspberry fits.
It looks raspberry red to me.
It is. It's a little darker.
Okay. I was like, what the hell's going on? But yeah, interior offensive line. Maybe the Broncos try to.
No. That was too quick for my liking. Mark Schrader, thank you, sir. Thanks for coming in. Good morning, guys. Glad you're with us. Always a big part of the show. So thank you, sir.
Yeah, we appreciate you, Mark, and everybody coming in here. But interior offensive line, I wouldn't be surprised. Reutilize some of those resources that you bring in and add that. And yeah, Jeremy's saying it's the snozberry color. So a little Willy Wonka talking here, but let's get into it. 20 minutes in, a couple power rankings have come out here recently after free agency, and I gotta say, Scott, maybe it's because I'm like this with the draft, but I'm like this with the NFL teams, specifically the Broncos. We know a lot more about the Broncos than most people, and probably the Falcons now at this point. But to see the Broncos ranked as low as they were in both Sports Illustrated and NFL.com's was a little bit jarring to me. So let's get to NFL.com's power rankings first from Dan Hanzus, who's done work there for a number of years. I believe he's in around the NFL podcast co-host as well, so you can find his work, NFL Network, NFL podcasts. And he has the Broncos coming in all the way at number 25 overall. Now, that said, he has them up 3 from their previous ranking, so they did climb some, but 25 is a team that's picking in the top 8 next year, right? That's where that would be. So he writes that the Broncos offense was undeniably broken last season. The team began free agency by addressing one of the unit's glaring deficiencies, signing former 49ers offensive tackle Mike McGlinchey and ex-Ravens guard Ben Powers to big contracts. The hope is that better protection will lead to better play by Russell Wilson, who is entering his sophomore season in Denver after a calamitous year 1. Good word, calamitous. Wilson should start off as the unquestioned starter, but new backup quarterback Jarrett Stidham, an intriguing free agent pickup by Sean Payton last week, will be waiting if Wilson's magic appears lost for good. The big question, how long is Wilson's leash in 23? So if you guys have questions about Jarrett Stidham and Russell Wilson, you can go back to Tuesday's show where Scott and I talked about that as the main topic because it was Jarrett Stidham Day in the media with so much people talking about him. But what do you think here, Scott? 25 overall, talking about the main goal being protecting Russell Wilson.
25 overall. If you're picking 8th, that's 7 and 10. Ask me how I know. Back-to-back 7 and 10s has put you at 8th in two different years. In back-to-back years. If you're drafting 8th next year, then you're resetting. You're done. The Russell Wilson era would be over. You're hitting the nuke button. If you've got Tim Patrick, you've got Cortland Sutton, you've got contracts you can move on from. You're already trying to move on from those guys. You're looking at Garrett Bowles. You're looking at all your older, higher price guys, and you're hitting the nuke button, man. That would be bad. Am I totally surprised that's where the Broncos are? No, we just talked about show me. It's there. The big question is how long is his leash? The big answer is if he comes stumbling out of the gate, I think you're definitely better off with Jarrett Stidham. And, I've talked a lot about, I like the San Francisco 49ers approach. I'd like a quarterback independent type of team where the roster around it is good enough that I can plug in a serviceable quarterback and go get wins. I'm not going to be able to win it all, but I can be very competitive, make the playoffs and make runs until I get that final piece. So I'm not surprised that that's where the team is right now. You've got a guy who's been let's look at it. Let's steel man this thing. Last year it was, okay, you got Russell Wilson, you got this exciting new offensive coach. You've got Russell Wilson in a new situation. He seems to be on the decline, and you've got a coaching staff that has zero experience in their current positions. Okay, that's a little scary. All right, we got Russell Wilson coming off the worst season of his career and a coach who's been out of it for over a year. Okay, we can justify, say, okay, yeah, that's we can work with that, and it can all turn around. Yes, it can. But those are the questions going in. Will this team be better enough to beat a 7 and 10 record? Yes, I think they will. But we were dead wrong on it last year. Robbie Red coming on. Is the let's ride era finally over? Yes, maybe, should be. Thank you for the super, Robbie. Matching my shirt. See that color?
That's a good one. Yeah, it's thank you so much, Robbie. Appreciate you wherever you're at. And we also got Kevin Seven coming in saying, Scott, I'm a big Real Madrid fan, and we have Chelsea and UCL. What do you think happens in those fixtures? By the way, we can still use more offensive line help for the Broncos.
I don't know. Last year, I said you needed a stake in holy water to beat Real Madrid last year, and you couldn't. They were beaten 3 times in the stages, including Chelsea, and won all of those ties. So I don't know. Chelsea plays much better in UCL than they do in Premier League right now. They're just, that's just the way they're built, and the guys get motivated for it. So we'll see. I'd still pick Real Madrid. Now I'm done talking soccer for Ernie and the rest of y'all. And yes, you can absolutely still use more help on the offensive line. Justin Sermons. You like that one, Joe? Well, Justin Williams is like one of my very first wide receivers from down in South Georgia. Those first guys that you start to scout, they just stick. They just stick in your brain. And when you go reaching for names, those are the first ones that come to mind for some reason. But Kevin, thank you for coming in green.
Yeah, big time. Thank you.
Looking forward to, but yes, center for me is still a big place you need to be concerned with.
On the roster for the immediacy of the 2023 season, the two positions that really stand out for me, for the starters, that you still need players, without a doubt, to me, center is number one, running back's number two. I kept saying it. Then you had the Broncos come out in the pre-combine press conference, kind of throwing it in my face. Then other rumors came out after that saying, hey, maybe Nick was right. But Javonte Williams, I'm not depending on him one bit. I don't know if he'll play a single snap next season. So right now, the only running back on the roster that I trust is Samaje Perine. And even I think he's better as a B rather than an A, option 2 rather than option 1. And you have like some people will be like, oh, Tyler Beatty's here. Well, he was a fifth round pick that the Ravens got rid of that you were able to pick up late last season that we saw almost nothing from. So your running back room that you want to run the football a lot more is Tyler Beatty and Samaje Perine. I don't think that's enough to get it done. But then center, of course, as well. And we got Albert Knoppers coming in saying, do you think Russell Wilson's performance was influenced by his knee injury? So yes, news came out yesterday that Russell Wilson had arthroscopic knee surgery, knee issue that had been bothering him for a number of years. Sounds like he's on the mend and should be fine. Will we see a different Russell Wilson after his procedure? I believe so. It worked for me. I don't know enough about that. The fact that he was able to play through it means that I'm not going to give him that much of a break on it. I mean, good for him, toughness, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know the extent of the injury, but I guess it can only be a good thing. The thing to watch now is it one of those things like, oh yeah, he's same with Javonte Williams. Oh yeah, he's jogging. Oh, he's on schedule. Is he going to be ready for July? Is he going to be ready for August? I mean, wait and see.
Yeah, I think he'll be fine, and it will help. Even if it's just to clear up a discomfort in there. You think, my knee's knocking. Well, when you've got these athletes, if I was a professional athlete, I probably would have gotten both shoulders fixed 25 years ago. So you get that stuff done, and it was almost procedural. How much did it affect him last year? We'll never know. The only one who will really ever know is Russell Wilson. Mm-hmm. There's, this isn't an injury, this has been bothering him for years, or this is an injury and this has just been done. We'll never know.
Yeah.
You ask, will we see a different Russell Wilson after his procedure? Probably, and it may have absolutely nothing to do with the procedure. It could have everything to do with the fact that you've improved your offensive line and you got Sean Payton as your head coach. Russell Wilson's in his second year in Denver. Expectations are lower. Pressure should be off of him a little bit. You're expecting to see a new Russell Wilson, a different, more improved Russell Wilson, regardless of the knee injury. And if that was affecting him, hopefully that's just another factor that helps him feel more comfortable back there playing, maybe sit in the pocket a little bit instead of, ducking and spinning and running, and trusting his reads and all those type of things. So you're hoping to see a improved Russell Wilson regardless.
You'd hope. RJ coming in from Western North Carolina. Y'all got the y'all in here. Dominique, good morning at Broncos country. Just got in. Did I miss any trade rumors? Sounds like the Patriots are a team to keep an eye on for the Broncos, and if they trade a wide receiver, now that the Browns have traded for Elijah Moore. But we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. It's time will tell. Keeping it moving here, we want to get into the conversation now about the teams that were ranked above the Broncos in this Dan Hanzus ranking. You have, I'll start at 17, Patriots. I'm fine with that. Panthers at 18, Packers at 19, Rams at 20, Browns at 21, Saints at 22, Raiders at 23, Buccaneers at 24, and then after the Broncos, Bears at 26, Falcons at 27, Titans at 28, Commanders at 29, Houston at 30. So I think you could probably make an argument the Broncos I would probably have them around 20 to 22 right now rather than 25, 30, but maybe that's, again, me being biased. And the other point I wanted to make, I have
a question though for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think we both pretty much agreed by the end of last season, the Falcons probably would have beaten the Broncos.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen what both teams have done in the offseason. Would you have leapfrogged the Broncos over the Falcons right now?
I think they're very close. And the Broncos coaching staff change is going to be massive, in my opinion. Just the amount of adults in the room now and doing the little things right, I think is going to change things tremendously. And I think also two areas that we talked about it a lot last year, and we talked about it with this Falcons team last year as well. There are two things in the NFL that tend to fluctuate wildly year to year. That if you are really bad one year, the next year it resets. You should be better there. And those are one-score games, and those are also injury luck. The Broncos were the worst team in the NFL last year in adjusted games lost due to injury. There was more distance in that stat from 1 to 2 than there was from like 2 to 5. So the Broncos were like standalone as how bad their injury luck was. And then also the Broncos last year in one-score games went 4-9, and they went 2-6 in games decided by a field goal or less. I mean, you put all that together, the Broncos seem like a team, even if they
weren't that far off. Yeah, we said that a bunch. And that was actually, I want to say hey to Gary here real quick. Yeah. Gary, good morning, Nick and Scott. He's coming in orange, that burnt orange, Broncos orange. He's started to come in late. I'm in zombie land this AM. Well, let's see if we can wake you up. I know this has helped me today. So help me get up is the coffee. And then y'all help me too. I get my blood going a little bit when we get on here. I had a comment on here. Remember when we had the question? I'm pretty sure it's almost always you and I guessed in for other shows, but someone asked, would this team have been better off right now if Aaron Rodgers had come instead of Russell Wilson? And I said, yeah, probably. I would say yes. And someone came in, somebody came in really sarcastic in the comments, guess you didn't notice that Aaron Rodgers wasn't very good last year and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I guess you didn't notice he threw for twice as many touchdowns as Russell Wilson. And the defense for the Broncos was spectacular. You just mentioned 2-6 in field goal games.
Yeah.
And there was a comment up above here. It's amazing. It was from Keith. It's amazing how 7-10 to 10-7 could change the trajectory of this team significantly. You think even a decent Russell Wilson doesn't switch those 3 games of those 2-6s? Can't change those in 3 games. Well, Aaron Rodgers is better than Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's better than he was, but we know what we got from Russell Wilson. We got really bad play. You get average quarterback play, not even MVP level Aaron Rodgers. And you're talking about flipping 3 games to go 8-9, 9-8 at the worst. Maybe 4 of those one-score games. With that defense, you didn't need much to be a playoff team on offense. The problem is you didn't get much on offense last year. Work your way up to even a 20th ranked offense while keeping a similar level of defense. You're a playoff team.
Yeah. I agree. I just come back to those normalizing stats. They should normalize this year. You say that every year. It's like a dice roll. Oh, I've rolled snake eyes twice in a row. Surely this next time I won't roll snake eyes again. Well, your odds of rolling snake eyes are the same every time because it's a re-roll, right? It doesn't what you did before doesn't matter. So gambler's fallacy there. But those are areas that you would expect some positive regression, just like how the Vikings last year, it was the playoff game. Oh, they're 11-0 in one-score games. Like, oh, they're re-rolling the dice again. We'll see. Or flipping that coin, I guess, better for the 50-50 odds on that one. They lost that one-score game in the playoffs. So I would expect the Broncos just to have some normal regression in those 2 areas that even if they didn't improve the coaching staff, even if they didn't add run-oriented personnel on offense, they would get a little better.
Yeah, even if they weren't getting several players back from healthy, all these things. So, looking at these rankings, would you rather be the Raiders or the Broncos right now? Because Hanzus says he'd rather be the Raiders. I disagree. I'm biased because I'm here with y'all all the time. But again, I'm also biased because I believe in Sean Payton and what he can do. And I don't think it's really that close as far as the coaching staffs now go. I think Sean Payton is significantly better. And I don't think this is a big, bold statement here. This is a significantly better coach than Josh McDaniels.
I think that the argument for Raiders versus Broncos circles around Russell Wilson and his contract. So maybe in the next 3 years, if Russell Wilson doesn't get on track, maybe you'd rather be the Raiders. But I'll tell you what, I'd rather have the richest owners.
I just mean for the ranking going into next season.
Yeah, for sure. I think I'd rather have the Broncos. I think I like a lot of their pieces on defense, especially more. But we'll see how it plays out. It's always, we're the show me guys, right? From Missouri. But we got Tim Durr saying, is there any chance the Broncos trade for Derrick Henry? Is that feasible at all? I think it's possible. Maybe you see a draft day trade. But and I also saw a comment here, why haven't the Broncos re-signed Latavius Murray? I think the Broncos right now are looking as I would assume they're looking at the draft as the next checkpoint for running back, and I think they could probably get a good one for cheap for 4 years, contract-wise, in rounds 3 to 5 and be pretty happy with that player. So bringing back, if they don't bring back one that they love, then you could see Latavius Murray back as well. Broncos wait until after the draft to bring in Melvin Gordon last season. There's going to be running backs available after the draft. There always are. So maybe on Latavius Murray and all that. But Derrick Henry, I don't know. I think I'd rather, sounds crazy, but for where the Broncos are at, I think I might rather keep those third round picks and get those young cost controlled players.
Yeah, I wonder, we talk about gas in the tank. Derrick Henry still ran for over 1,500 yards last year, coming off of an injury shortened season. He's still really good. Mm-hmm. He just turned 29 years old. He's still really good. What are you going to trade for him, though, is the thing. Is it draft picks? You don't have a whole lot of them. Mm-hmm. If you send them a player, they're trying to get rid of money. So you can't trade them like, okay, we'll send you Courtland Sutton something, maybe you need a receiver. They're moving on from Derrick Henry because I think Ryan Tannehill's cap hit is still top 2 in the NFL. They're trying to clear some cap space. They've made a lot of moves already. So would you? Sure, I'd entertain the idea, but what do I have to trade that they would want?
Yeah. Really will be interesting to see what happens with Henry. Also, I think it's one of those veteran players who's been great for an organization for a number of years. I wonder if they kind of give him a little bit of a choice of where he wants to go. And would that be Denver? I don't know. I mean, he'd be a lot of fun in Denver. Talk about leaning into the run game. He'd be one of them. It'd be really funny to see him in the backfield with Russell Wilson. Also, just like the body types, handing it off, the 5'10", 5'11" Russell Wilson squat, handing it off to the 6'3", 240-pound monster that is Derrick Henry. But Clayton Huron saying, just booked his flights for spring break, Florida. Here we come. Leaving Sunday morning to Orlando, heading to Universal Studios. Well, have a good one, Clayton. That seems like a good time to get a little bit of warmth in March.
I'm doing the same thing in April. Okay. So I'll be down there for a few days. I've got in-laws there, so we'll drive and stay for free. I see you put in here your money, so it's expensive to go down there. Ours will just be tickets. So my wife is actually from Orlando, so we're going to go down there for a couple days too. So maybe the same time. Real quick, David asks, can someone tell me how many years Sean Payton's contract is for? 1. It's 1 year with every option. No, they don't put those out there as much. Sometimes the agents will leak it because they want to let people know, but I don't remember seeing how many years technically it's for. But how long was Nathaniel Hackett's for? It's basically game to game. What it would cost you wouldn't cost the team. So if it's a 10-year deal and they want to move on for it after the first week, it's not like a dead cap where that affects your salary cap number. That just comes out of the Walton Penner Group's pockets. So they would just have to buy him out. If he decided he didn't want to go anymore and want to coach anymore, he wouldn't have to. He'd just retire again. So the years on those don't really matter. They don't. So it's just, is he coaching or not?
Yeah. So final point I want to get to before we move on to the Sports Illustrated Power Rankings. So he talks about the Broncos did everything they could. Dan Hanzus in the NFL.com article saying the Broncos did everything they could to protect Russell Wilson better for this upcoming season. And while Russell Wilson was the number 1 most sacked quarterback last season, again, I think and he doesn't have enough characters to really get into the details of this and really flesh it out. But I don't think it's about protecting Russell Wilson via pass protection. This is a team that is, again, everything you heard me say it on here. I was talking about it last season. The run game personnel was not good enough. And because of that, teams were able to play lighter boxes. They were playing 2 high safety shells. And you were pretty continuously, I've looked for this stat and I cannot find it anywhere, but I would have to imagine the Broncos had the worst average yards to go on third down in the NFL. They were number 1 in procedural penalties. They were number 1 in sacks. They were really terrible at rushing the football. They were bad in the quick pass game. Hello, everything there points to being horrible average yards to go on third down. Running the football this season, leaning more on the run game under center, taking the ball out of Wilson's hands to an extent in terms of the decision-making and the high-volume passing. All the moves point to that. Not protecting Russell Wilson via pass protection, but protecting him kind of from himself and making him play his best style of football, which is what Pete Carroll had him doing in his best years in Seattle. And hopefully at this point you have buy-in from Russell Wilson as well, because he was in a Hall of Fame path while he was playing that style.
Yeah, and we saw enough from him last year. It's like there's nothing wrong with the arm. It's for me. It's about we saw some throws that we're making that were. We saw enough throws last year to know he still can make plus NFL throws. Now it's about comfort level. Getting back there and trusting your offensive line. And it seems like there's a correlation between the players that are sacked the most also have the most time to throw because they're holding on to the ball longer, and they're usually mobile quarterbacks. So I don't trust that data that much because they're like, oh yeah, well, this guy had the most to throw. Well, he was creating some of his own room. He's also getting sacked the most. Well, because he was trying to make more happen than he should instead of throwing the ball away. Mm-hmm. That's a positive and a negative. So you can tell me that he was in the top 3, top 5 in time to throw last year. Baloney. I don't believe it. I'm looking at it. If he's taking a snap under center, the center was in his lap. So the stronger offensive line, the more trust in the system, having a boss, all those things are going to help for sure.
Yeah, I agree. And one stat that always sticks out here with the Russell Wilson quarterback stuff last year. This is a pass protection quarterback sack stat that I believe is mostly on the quarterback. Some of it's on the design. It's always, there's never a single stat that is only on one individual player. That's what makes football so great. But Russell Wilson had the worst pressure to sack rate in the entire NFL. So the amount of times that pressures led to him getting sacked was the highest. That to me says mobility ? Maybe the knee injury helps, and also the decision making. Got to get rid of it away. Yep.
He's not finding a spot where he can throw the ball away. So, a hot route, everybody knows what a hot route is. I see a blitz coming, my quick first read. Part of that's also knowing where I can get rid of the ball, where I'll have a receiver where I can get rid of it in a hurry. So that's a big thing. You'd see the concerning thing with him is as soon as it would come down, his eyes would come down too. And part of that's not being able to see, but as soon as the pocket would start to collapse, his eyes come down. He's not looking downfield anymore. He's not looking side to side. He's looking, how do I escape this rather than how do I get the ball away? So that's a factor of his style of play as well.
Yep. And we saw it down the second half of, I guess, the last quarter of the season. The Broncos started moving the pocket a little bit more, and it helped him get some throwing windows, just a little more comfortable. So hopefully we'll see Peyton use that. And I trust Peyton to maximize what Russell Wilson has left. The question is, what does Russell Wilson have left, which was really Dan Hanzus' take-home point in his ranking of the Broncos. So I totally agree with him there. Clayton Huron saying, great show. Heading out for breakfast, 40th birthday for his mom. Well, happy birthday to Mrs. Huron, or Mother Huron. Mrs. Huron's my mother. No, for sure. Happy birthday to her, 40, big 40. Get her a coffee on her.
It's Clay's 40th. So happy for the stars. It's Clay's 40th.
Duh. Your mom's 40. Clayton, how old are you? Are you the one that's pictured here? Duh. It's your 40th. Well, happy birthday to you, Clayton. We got a lot of birthdays here recently. There must be something in the era when people are being born in February and March. Ernie Mays, you guys are awesome. You're awesome.
You're awesome, Ernie. You keep us on our toes. If I start straying too much into Chelsea talk, I'm like, I got to get off of this. Ernie's going to come after me.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're talking Falcons again, Nick. We got to get out of here. Ernie's here.
Happy birthday to you, Clayton. We appreciate you. Tim saying the new offensive line signs will help, but getting pressure constantly up the middle isn't exactly protecting Russ. Yeah, I don't know if you saw the Ben Baldwin stat where it had Lloyd Cushenberry's pass ranking as 79 out of 100, which was like one of the top, I think, 7 centers in pass protection. I think and I've talked with Seth Walder, who does a lot of ESPN advanced analytics, who does a great job out there, but they definitely have a weakness when it comes to pass protection. Because if an offensive lineman, my understanding was if an offensive lineman stays in front of their blocking assignment, but it's driven back 99 yards, that's a win.
That's the ESPN win rate for run blocking too.
Yeah.
I was engaged. It doesn't matter that I was blown back into the running back's path and he had to adjust an off tackle into a sweep right off the bat, so that was part of it. When we see like win-loss, we think of that data as objective. It's not. It's absolutely not. There is a person deciding if this was a win or a loss. I disagree with this person. That was a loss. When I'm doing those for my highlights, I actually keep 3 categories in. When I'm doing my one-on-ones and I want to pull up highlights, I'll call win, loss, and draw. And it's like, this is close. This is kind of a stalemate. And I'll put all the wins for what I think was a win for a player at the front of his clips. I'll cut out the losses, and then I'll put the draws at the end. So I'm not sure how they count them, but again, those are totally subjective data points. And to say he was a top 7 pass blocking center in the NFL is asinine. It's just that's just garbage in, garbage out, Nick. That's what you get from your formula when you're having data like that.
Yeah. Real quick, just something you just said interests me. You cut out the lowlights on players. Do you do that for offensive line as well? Because for offensive line specifically, I am all about the lowlights.
When I'm doing player highlights, see if you want to see the lowlights in I'm not putting every single clip in of John Michael Schmitz. If you want to see him, you got to watch all. If you want to see the lowlights, you're going to have to watch all the clips.
Yeah. Okay.
I know them.
Yeah.
Because I'm watching every single clip, but I'm calling these highlights.
Yeah, for sure.
So they are highlights. So I'm watching every single clip, but every single rep for the 1v1s is in that one is in that 1 10-minute clip where it's every single rep. So you can say, oh, okay, well, this is John Michael Schmitz. Well, okay, when I'm watching all these, wait a minute, he got handled by, I can't remember whoever was out there. Trinity Benson. Who was the Wisconsin guy? Keanu.
Yes, Keanu Benton.
Keanu Benton. He got handled there a couple times. So when I'm watching the defensive lineman's highlights, I might see the offensive player. But when I'm doing a highlight reel for a player, cut his lowlights out of there. It's highlights.
Yeah.
But you can find them because they're all on there.
Yeah.
And if you ask me, I'll tell you.
Yeah, just
wait a minute. How come this guy only has 45 seconds and this guy has 6 minutes? Well, he got his ass kicked the other 10 reps he was in there.
Just the interesting point for me on that is that offensive line. Yeah, I grade the lowlights as much as I grade anything because offensive lineman needs to be right 99 out of 100 times.
Grade versus what I show you in a highlight reel are two different things.
Yeah, and I'm not questioning your system, but just more for the chat, like thinking about the positions. I can get a lot from a player, specifically at defensive line and wide receiver in those positions where it's the splash plays from the highlights. I'm looking for those ones. But like cornerback, linebacker, offensive line especially, those lowlights and how often you see those lowlights matter. If I see a linebacker make a few splash plays, but they're out of position constantly or whiffing in their tackles or their gap filling, I don't give a flying bleep about the highlights.
You can't evaluate on a highlight film.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to see, and that's why the phrase "film doesn't lie" is along those lines. Like, I got to watch a full game. I can see highlights and say, okay, now I'm interested, but now I want to see more because I want to see the low lights as well. So when you're only seeing highlights, it's not telling you the whole story. Obviously, I mean, this is fairly obvious stuff. But when I'm putting together someone's highlights, they're mostly highlights. I put in some draws in there so you can see them going against, but they're the wins.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Their lowlights are on somebody else's reel.
Yeah, for sure. I think, again, my main drive home point is that some positions, you still want to watch everything, but some positions, you can watch the highlights and get an idea of what they are because it is about those splash plays, which are the highlights. Like, we could probably go back and watch
running back
Myles Garrett, also tape out of Texas A&M, and just watch the highlights. Okay, well, maybe there's some technical work there, but you show me the 5-minute highlights on that, and I see the body type and the athleticism and be like, oh, that's a freaking alien. That's different. Where if you'd watch,
the only one you can't check on those is vision, really, because they made the right choice in a highlight reel. So that's the one that you have to watch for. Because I'm always watching for Naj coming in. Appreciate you, Naj Altaf. He's coming in Broncos orange this morning with his super chat on YouTube. He says, hey, bros, I saw Pats have a 2 and a 4 on the table for Judy. I think it's terrible personally, but clearly Peyton doesn't want Judy. Would you take the Pats deal? What I hear and what I see are different things. So if that's what they ended up trading for, I would say that's probably not enough for me. That the Patriots got a pretty good deal there with a 2nd and a 4. I ask financially, what could because he's still cheap in this year. He doesn't start getting more expensive until 2024.
And he's not even that expensive in 2024.
No, it's a 5th-year option to be $12-13 million, which is half price for a number 1 receiver. Yeah. But still, he doesn't get that expensive. I start asking, what can I get back? How can I make my team better? Can I replace him with a 2 and a 4 and the money that I receive? Because it's not always just about the draft picks. It's about the available money. With the money, no. That's a no because he's cheap. He's on a rookie deal. With a 2 and a 4, maybe, but probably not. I probably just got worse. I probably get worse making that deal, Naj.
That's more of a long-term perspective because you're going to get 2 cost-controlled players. Would they be interested in sending us Cole Strange? That way we can just put away that center position. I don't know if he was worth that pick they took last year, but he was pretty good overall. I think he had 0 penalties or something wild for the Patriots, but Lord knows the Broncos could use that. But we got to flip over to this thank you, Naj, 1999. You're always killing it for us. We really appreciate you. Sports Illustrated, Connor Orr, I believe, was the writer of the Sports Illustrated article. Yes, Connor Orr, ranking the 32 teams. He has the Broncos at 30th overall, the 3rd worst team, only worse ranked than the Houston Texans and the Arizona Cardinals. Above them, the Colts, the Buccaneers, the Saints, the Commanders, the Panthers, the Titans. Falcons at 22. There you go, Scott. But Broncos at 30. Says people may disagree, but this felt like a bit of a lipstick on a pig offseason for the Broncos. Man, punching right away. I have no problem with how they spent their money. Guard Ben Powers is 26 and played every snap in an incredibly demanding Ravens offense last year. Tackle Mike McGlinchey, 28. Edge rusher Zach Allen, 25. Could finally help the Broncos with their push to generate some consistent outside pressure. But were they really spend a ton of money to get back in this thing close this year? We're about to find out. So pretty much what he's saying is that I don't know. I think the power ranking would be disagreement still. They spent and they got better, but he's arguing into his statement here. Was it the best thing for the Broncos to do with where they're at, given where the team is set up right now and the contract of Russell Wilson?
Sure.
I agree with that.
They were young.
Yeah.
You're going after young guys. Albert says, we'll put a bow on this Judy talk. After the 5th, can they still franchise tag Judy? Yeah, they can. That's what they just did with Lamar Jackson's contract. Mm-hmm. He played his 4 years, 5th year option, and they just put a tag on him, and they can tag him again if they want to. So you could really end up with 7 years of relative cost control of a first-round draft pick. So good question, Albert. Yes, you can. The player, and that's the thing is, like, we've talked about hitting that nuke button. Well, how are you going to do that with the players that you just brought in? No, you're not. The players you just brought in are guys that Sean Payton wanted to, if I do have to rebuild, I want these guys to be a core of my team. They're young-ish in NFL terms, are still, with an offensive tackle, can play well into his mid-30s. I've got 7-8 years of these guys. I just got a defensive lineman who's 25 years old. Yeah, I lost one, but that's probably, I think it's a benefit for both teams, honestly. I think Draymond will play better next year for the Seahawks than he did for the Broncos. And I think Zach Allen will play better for the Broncos than Draymond did for the Broncos. I just think it's a fresh start for everybody, and they'll be better. So these are guys you want to move forward with no matter what. So was it the best thing to do for the team? Yeah. Yeah, these are building blocks. Trenches. Do they make you better than you were? You should. For me, this is basically saying I don't think Sean Payton can get anything more out of Russell Wilson, and Jarrett Stidham isn't good enough. Flat out. That. I just wrapped up whatever he said. That's what he said by putting the Broncos at 30.
Yeah. Not a believer in Russell Wilson. And after last season, it seems like most people in big NFL media don't believe in Wilson. So we'll see how it plays out this season. If the Broncos do have to move on from him, it will be interesting. I'm really glad that he got this arthroscopic. I was just thinking about this too. I'm glad he got this arthroscopic surgery this offseason, because what if he got it next offseason? Would that mean that then his injury guarantee would kick in? I mean, that's
I
weird.
think they'll have a decision made before that.
Yeah.
At some point. But, how you say it can never get worse, but how is this team going to be worse than they were last year? Really? How are they going to be worse than 5-12?
Another crazy amount of injury luck and
yeah.
Russell Wilson.
And that's, but they were so injured before. You'd think that it really. I don't know. I just have a really, really hard time picturing how this team gets worse. I really do, because frankly, the bar was set low, really low. There's good players on this team. There's talent in all the right spots. If the quarterback isn't good enough, okay, well, it's hard to picture him being any worse than he was last year. You know, and then if you have to pull the plug, you've got Jarrett Stidham is better than Rippon.
Okay, the other one here is how does it get worse? I could see the defense falling off a tad. Let's say you lose Ejiro Evero to the Vance Joseph is a massive difference on that side of the ball. And let's say that you lose some of those key players on the defense.
There you go. The defense gets worse. Yeah.
The defense gets worse. That's probably the pathway. I mean, right now we've talked about it on other shows. We'll have another chance to talk about it, but the cornerback depth is god awful. And if you lose Patrick Surtain at all, and then you're playing Jaquan McMillan out there, your secondary is sunk. I mean, you have like Justin Simmons back there, but guess what? One safety does not make a secondary. So if you lose Surtain, you have a chance to be, and other things happen too, but you have a chance to be worse than last year. The pass rush. Let's say Baron Browning doesn't deals with injuries again. Randy Gregory's out.
But and they were out last year.
They are,
but I mean, they were missing last year. But Chronic says, didn't we say the same thing about 2021, especially about the offense? Yes. Yeah. But yeah, we said that last year. And Nick just had a good answer. If the offense doesn't get any better because your quarterback position is irrevocably broken and your defense slides, you could get worse. Yeah. You could. I don't think that happens. I have a hard time picturing the offense being any worse, honestly. Yeah. But we've talked about this. The defense could come down some while the offense comes up, and they balance each other out, and you're still a bad team. Possible. It's possible.
Yeah. So we'll have a chance to talk floors and ceilings, but just looking at the roster right now, I mean, if you lose Baron Browning and Randy Gregory, you don't have the half season of Bradley Chubb as well, and you're dealing with Nick Benito and Jacob Martin and John Cooper as your starting edges. That's not ideal. Then Surtain goes down, DJ Jones misses sometimes. Things get real ugly real quick on the defensive side of the ball. But again, that's hopefully a better injury luck this year. We'll see how it all plays out. And Broncos ranked 25.
Won 7 games with Steven Means and Dante Fowler at edge.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Sean Payton makes a difference here. He does.
Yeah. Yep. I agree with you. But I'm really skeptical and cautious to say that to make any guarantees after how last season played out.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah. But I mean, if we're anything's possible, everything's possible. But if we're looking at this to say, okay, are the Broncos going to be worse in 2023 than they were in 2022? Pick one. You got to put $1,000 on it. Yes or no? Which one are you choosing? No, they're going to be better. They're going to be better. Through osmosis, they're going to be better, for God's sakes.
Oh, God, you hope so. But guys, we're going to have to wrap it on up here. We're at 7:30 here. I got to get on into my other job. Scott's probably got other things to do too. He's probably got to get sleeping and wrap out the roadmap for all the youth sports that he's got coming this weekend, without a doubt. So appreciate everyone coming in. We got Naj with the big super chat coming in. Mark Schrader was coming in. Gary Palmer killing it as always. Kevin 7, we appreciate you. Robbie Red. I'm telling you,
Clayton coming in on stars on the other side of things too. So thank you so much.
Happy birthday, Clayton. And just happy you're hanging out with your mom, even though it's not her 40th. But yeah, it should be a good one. And Aki-san could possibly go in 17. Nick personally attended all of the games. You know what? Caleb Williams is in your future then. So maybe you guys should pay me to go to those games. It'd be crappy short term, but Broncos have been so irrelevant for so long. What does it even matter? I mean, I think if you went back and you asked the Jags, like, hey, do you really care about that one season that you stunk so bad, but then you ended up getting Trevor Lawrence? You make that deal every time. I don't know.
How did the frickin' Spurs end up with David Robinson and Tim Duncan?
Yeah.
Come on. You know, I mean, it's not like that. But Aki, I was at the Broncos. I was at 40% of the Broncos wins. 2-0. 2-0 last year. And Kornalik, he says, no, I agree with you. You know, you made a really good point. So, you know, that wasn't a criticism at all. He says, I'm just saying we were the 5th pick. We could be the 1st pick next year. So we aren't at rock bottom yet. I have hope, but I don't want to jinx anything. No, and Nick made a great point. If the defense, we're making the assumption that the defense is going to stand pat, but they might not. There's some changes that are being made in the defense. And frankly, Nick, they could still get better. They could get better in takeaways and they could get better in sacks. So that's also a possibility. Naj coming in here real quick before we were getting out of here. And he says, no team should have a bigger chip on their shoulder than the Broncos and no player more than Russell Wilson. They will win double-digit games this year. Mark my words. All right, Naj. I don't disagree with the first things you say. You know, the Broncos were embarrassed last year. So whereas a team like the Indianapolis Colts, those two teams had a very similar track last year, and they both fell flat on their faces. The Broncos are in a better position to bounce back quickly than the Colts, in my opinion. They've got a more proven quarterback, even though, you know, we'll see. There's still questions there. The Colts aren't there yet. So those are two teams that had a very similar trajectory last year. Real high expectations, and then straight down in the tank. One of them's picking 4, and one of them had the 5th pick. So that tells you where that is. They will win double-digit games this year. It's not out of the question. That's for sure. And Naj, I hope to see you at one of those victories next year at the meet and greet when that gets. So thank you so much for your support today. And then Ethan coming in, the DWI guys closing us out, the closer. He's coming in. That's more of a hot pink than the raspberry. So he says, so it looks like the Broncos want to move on from Judy for whatever reason we don't have to agree with. And a 2 and a 4 for him hasn't got it done. Do you take a 2 and a 3 this year and send back a 6 year to facilitate the deal? So yeah, we'll give you a sweetener in the next. Again, a 2 and a 3 still isn't enough for me for the same reason I said a 2 and a 4 is. But if I need to move on from Jerry Jeudy, and it's the same thing, Ethan, you watch enough of these shows to know I said about Cortland Sutton. It's a personality thing. It's a culture thing. It's a clash thing more than a talent and financials thing, because the talent is better than a 2 and a 3, and he's cheap. So it doesn't make any sense financially or for the talent that you'd be getting back to make this move unless you think it's addition by subtraction, Nick.
He's been floated around rumors now multiple times. Not to quote a great movie from a decade ago, not a great movie, but maybe he's just not that into you. Maybe the Broncos front office is not that interested in Jerry Jeudy, and maybe this coaching staff isn't either. I mean, it's just they keep shopping him. So who knows? We'll see what happens. I think that if the Broncos got a 2 and a 4 for him, or a 2 this year and a 2 next year, that'd be fine. And what's going on, Scott?
I'm here by myself. I'm usually not. And my big cat is a little upset, and he's come down the steps just basically howling, and he just turned the corner. Hold on. He just turned the corner with a big, toy in his mouth while he's like basically howling, like, I brought you a present. Somebody pay attention to me. So everybody say hello to Ninja. Hello. All right. Thank you for the mousey.
Very cute.
All
yeah,
right.
Good.
It's a family show.
Yeah, absolutely. So, guys, we got to get on out of here. Appreciate everyone for joining us today. All the super chats, the last minute ones too, coming in again from Naj and DWI guys. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for supporting the show. And make sure you're following Scott and I on Twitter. Scott is at Scout Kennedy. I am at Nick Kendell MHH. Also follow us at BFB_pod and at Mile High Huddle. If you haven't done so yet, head on over to Apple Podcasts. Leave us a 5-star rating and review. You can leave the one somebody giving me a hard time about the computer before. Hey, leave one now. Say, hey, the show's perfect 5 stars now. Nick sounds beautiful and looks beautiful because of the new computer. Better than normal. So appreciate that. And
upgrades. That's a big thing for y'all coming in and helping support the show. We get upgrades.
Yeah, 100%. It gets better. You guys are great. Thank you so much. As the ticker says underneath there on the YouTube side of things, please subscribe to the channel Mile High Huddle. Like the show, like the page, share it to your socials. I see it shared on Twitter and Instagram, Facebook from time to time. That helps a heck of a lot. And if you join us on the Facebook side of things, we still got a lot of people in here. Click the thumbs up on the way in. We got a sad one from Chase Wellner coming in. A wow from Justin Wilhelm. Got some love from Keith Brugman and Benjamin Flores. We can pump those numbers up. Let's get it to a nice Terrell Davis 30 on my end versus a Royce Freeman 28. We don't want the Royce Freeman one. We want TD. So a couple likes on the way out the door. Scott, I got nothing else. I think we talked about it. We'll see if the Broncos are better. One last question. Where would you have the Broncos ranked? Yourself.
I think mid-20s is fair right now, honestly. Anything more than that, I think, would show my bias towards this group. I think they will be better than that, but my trying to counteract a bias I recognize would say, listen, they've got to prove it right now. I would try and pick this apart and say, okay, is McGlinchey a big upgrade over what you've had? Maybe for what you want to do, but we don't know for sure what you want to do. We don't know how well the system is going to do. So there's too many unknowns in there, including the improvement at your quarterback position, the new defensive coordinator, some losses of Draymond Jones. How is the new guy going to fit where he comes in? Then I think there's enough questions in there that I think mid-20s is fair. And it won't win you a single game in 2023. So who cares? It's fun. It's fun to do. It's fun to talk about. It's fun to fill time. and discuss the disrespect and all that, but it's not going to win a game in September. So I think mid-20s is fair. It's not how you start, it's how you finish.
We're the old guys, they used to be the guys at the pub at the end of the day. No, we're the old guys at the local McDonald's in the country, the small middle of the country McDonald's, having their 7 a.m. breakfast at McDonald's every day, the retired folks with their newspapers. And we're talking Broncos power rankings. What do you think here? I'd probably have them about 20 to 22 personally, which would have them picking, top 10 to top 12 overall. I think that's about where they're going to be at. But again, like you said, it doesn't matter. The results will play themselves out over time. So that's going to do it, guys. We appreciate you. Thanks so much for everybody joining us. Scott and I will see you again next Monday. You guys have a great weekend. Continue to choose compassion and kindness. Maybe we'll get some more Broncos news. Maybe not. I mean, we're full steam ahead on the draft too. So maybe the Broncos have more picks to talk about by that point, but who knows? But you guys have a good one. Scott, enjoy all your youth sports and driving around this week. Good luck to you. And go Broncos.